Yay!
Yay,
Hey.
excellent. Welcome everybody on this rather warm Friday evening. This week we are doing the same. We are doing our back to work. I think this is episode 3, I think, guys, for our webinars. Hope you've all had a good week. We've got the usual culprits on the panel, myself, Carl, Will, and I'm delighted to say that we are joined by Martin this evening. Martin, thank you very, very much.
Well, pleasure to be here.
Fabulous. I'm going to jump straight in, guys, and I'm going to grab Mr. Murphy and ask you how your week has been this week.
Yeah, my week's been pretty busy, which is obviously a relative term now, isn't it? Because sort of one examination and a occlusal amalgam can be busy, can't it? So, but anyway, Monday I did some fit testing. As you know, I've become very popular since I've got my little certificate for testing masks. So I did a friend's practice there. So that was all fine. Wednesday I was back down in Harpenden placing implants. Yay! So yeah.
Oh, at last.
At
Yeah.
last.
Good man, Will.
Yeah. So that was all good. And today I drove down to Bristol to get my daughter and bring her back from university. So that's 2 of my children have finished university. I know what you're thinking. Too young, mate. No way.
I was just about to say that, Will.
You didn't. I knew you were about to say it.
Yes, it's just about to trip off my tongue.
Thanks, guys. You're very kind. And bit of a surgical in the afternoon. So actually, I feel like I need a holiday now, to be honest. Just maybe a 3-month sabbatical or something like that.
I could recommend a couple of beaches.
Are you finding that your stamina's gone? Like when you're about, after lunch, about 3 o'clock, you're just sat there going, okay, this is actually quite hard work. Are you finding the same thing?
Yeah, I am. I'm a little bit like, blinking hell, that's, So yeah, we got to work back up to that, haven't we? I think.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, that was my week in a nutshell.
And the staff still comfortable, Will? They're getting used to all the new processes?
Yeah, I think I sort of repeat myself in that, you're having to think in a new way now, from the patient journey to the, is this an aerosol? Isn't it an aerosol? And so on and so forth. And right, let's put all our kit on in the same way, which I'm sure you'll find, Martin, for any implant procedure, it's old news, isn't it, really? It's just slightly funkier masks that we're putting on. So, yeah, that's all been good. Staff are very relaxed and, it's all starting to feel a bit more normal. So I don't know how you're finding it, Martin.
It is, but we're still kind of tripping around one another during the different parts, and I think it's the middle of a procedure when you kind of look around, you think, oh, you might need to use a drill here. Okay, what do you need to do? This might be, it wasn't going to be an AGP, but it is now an AGP, and then suddenly you have to kind of, like you say, think in a different way is the important bit of it. Varies between some of the girls. Some of them have been excellent, and others of them are still getting used to it. That's because they've come back at different times. The ones who are just in, you kind of see almost like, what? I've got to do all this, and where are these gowns and these masks? And the ones who've been there for a while are really, really relaxed. So it varies between people, really. It varies between people is what I'd say in our practice.
And the response from your patients, Martin, has been positive?
Generally positive. I mean, at the beginning, we are still charging a small fee for PPE because when we went out and bought, I think, 3 washing machines, like for 50 gowns, loads of masks at ridiculous rates, we just sat there, having not earned money for 10 weeks. So we passed that bit on. So that's probably been the hardest thing, is that discussion, because the patients think, hang on, it's for PPE, that's just one disposable mask, but you have to explain that it's the whole process that has changed. So that's really where I think our difficulty has been, is the extended times mean, for instance, an orthodontist who used to take 15 minutes now has to take half an hour, so it does have an impact, but it's trying to explain that to people who don't see the impact. A lot of them have been very grateful because they know that we have made the effort to open, despite all of the barriers that we've been through. and that's been very nice, and them going, oh, I'm glad you're open. Some of our referring practices haven't opened yet, so we've helped them with some of their patients and sent them back afterwards. So that bit has been good, but generally very positive from the patients.
Fantastic, that's great, really good. And the receptionists, Will and Martin, your receptionists, they're handling the calls okay as they're coming through?
Yeah, we've sort of kind of started slowly, although we're getting back into doing treatment. We're trying to make time so that the staff can have a little bit of a concentrated time looking through the book, kind of going back for people who've slipped through the net, dealing with the new inquiries. We had quite a lot of online inquiries. We've got online forms. So people are almost assuming that the front desk phone system may be off, and so we were getting a lot of online inquiries. So it's just sort of putting that all together. But so far, the staff's been great. Everybody's coped really well.
Fantastic. And Carl, our week this week, I know we were back in clinic.
Yeah. But not placed yet. But no. It was interesting. There was 2 practices that had started back. So I'd already been into one of them and been through the process. So with the new screens, and as Martin was saying, a few staff had come in and a few hadn't. Some of them are still shielding. One of them has failed every single mask.
Have you not sent them to Will? Have you not sent Will up there? He'll sort that out.
Yeah. Come to me. Come to my
bit of epoxy resin around the mask.
Yeah, you've got to keep 2 thumbs on here for the whole process. I didn't say that. That was a joke.
But I mean, interestingly, one of the patients was a medical practitioner, and we're sort of hearing and lots of conversations about how frustrated we are with the lack of direction. And she said exactly the same, that they aren't really receiving a lot of guidance or anything. In fact, I started to do my normal whinge, and then she
come on.
Yeah, she kind of nothing. I thought, oh, you know what? Actually, fair play. So that was quite good, having that kind of, you don't feel like you're the only profession that's being, is the word dumped on, politely, and going through all these hoops, that they're probably in a similar situation, and they've been in the dark for maybe a similar amount of time, and it's difficult for others as well. So I think everybody is sort of finding the feet, like you guys said. And the other practice, it was nice to see them. I didn't see all the stuff again. Not all of them are in. They've got the shielding up, and they've had to modify that slightly because there was a little gap where the patients were popping their head through to make sure that they could spread the disease onto the receptionist a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, just to make sure you get it behind the shield, so it doesn't, it stays there and kind of lingers.
Those shields, they get in the way,
Yeah. Do you know what? I think we've stumbled across a new hot topic at last, because we spent a lot of time, didn't we, talking about sort of mask and aerosols, and when's an aerosol not an aerosol, and all this sort of stuff. We've spent hours on that. I think the new hot topic may well be PPE charges.
Yeah.
I've noticed like a little, they're charging, so there's almost like this sort of moral guideline coming out about, what you can and what you can't charge. I think in particular, one of the corporates is probably setting the standard on that, Carl. They are charging for PPE to certain patients of a certain service, and they're not charging the others. They're disseminating it between the associates, so it's an interesting concept, but I think that it has to be passed on, unfortunately. You can't absorb it. Exactly what Martin was saying. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business, and as lovely as it would be to offer everything and make no changes, it's changed fundamentally, and there hasn't been any income coming in, and to survive that, you've got to adapt. And what's a reasonable? Sorry, Martin.
I think the hard thing is we're just so used to an environment where I think the costs you charge and not changing the price is so linked with your, everyone doesn't want to be that dodgy dentist who put the price up after the implant went in and this ended up more. So we almost feel like I have to stick to this price because I've said it, because that means that I'm an honest person. But we've reached the point where, the petrol at the supermarket, they've got a little dial to turn it up and down according to their costs. And in the supermarkets, all the costs have a little digital display. They can change that. So when their costs go up, everyone accepts you pay more for petrol, less for petrol, more for this, less for that. But we seem to be in this category where, nope, it is fixed. It has been said. We cannot change that. And it's a hard one because it feels bad asking for it. But on the other hand, you just know it's absolutely vital for your business, because otherwise, the bank of, in our case, Nick and Martin, is paying for the PPE.
Yeah.
And what is a reasonable charge?
You see, it's a hard thing, because the clinical time, it's gone anyway. Half an hour to 15-minute orthodontic, it's gone. So really, we just thought what we'd like is to reach the point where in some ways, before things go back to not having to wear the gowns and the masks and dress up like we're going to the moon every time we want to do an occlusal amalgam, we just want to find some way to pay for the stuff. We'll take the hit on the time, but we want some way to pay for the stuff. So we've got £15 and £30. It's probably ended up more people have paid the 15 than the 30. And it's probably more in some ways towards, if you have an appointment where you're having a mouthful of implants, we're not going to ask you for a bit of money for PPE. If, on the other hand, you're popping in for a chat and a review, and that was not an income-generating appointment, that's potentially where we think, actually, it is fair that you pay for some clinical time, especially if you could have come in a month or 2 or 3. And, hygiene as well, because they're going to have to kind of get dolled up and take everything on and off every few minutes. So, there's no, I can't give you any science behind it or any numbers or a lovely graph or spreadsheet. It was what we thought would work.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, I obviously moaned to Kelly when I got back, and we were sort of discussing this, and she's been doing the food shopping alone. I think she comes back with food anyway. And she said to me that it's rocketed. And so that the amount of costs for the groceries has certainly gone up, and it's and also with the masks, I was helping somebody, the nurse that was not able to fit test on them. I said, well, have a look at the reusable ones. So they went online to look for the same mask, and it's gone up £30 since I looked at it, and that was 2 weeks ago. So I think the difference probably is for us as well is we are in that room with that patient hands-on, whereas the corporates, such as the supermarkets and the online place where you get your PPE, they're not front-facing. So we feel it because we've got that emotional contact with the patient. So it's a lot more personal having that conversation when you're asking for that, please help us out, we're trying to help you, so please chip in a little bit so that we can carry on helping you. And it does feel a bit more personal, I think. It's not like in a supermarket or a petrol station, like you say, where they can just go, everybody accepts that, but they don't always accept it unless you explain it. And I'm sure that we're not all great at that.
And Will, do you have those charges within your practice?
Martin.
Yeah, I'm still.
You're still here.
You've left us.
We're sort of, again, having that little debate at the moment. I mean, I haven't been in enough to really nail that down as what the charge is going to be, and hence I'm sort of almost learning on the job here by talking to you guys about what's going to be a reasonable PPE charge. I can see some places doing £35. Some of the corporates are doing that. I was thinking about 145 per mask. Is that unreasonable?
Is that all?
Is that unreasonable?
Yeah. Is that including fit testing for the patient as well?
I'm just going to reboot the room because I've lost your visual feed, Martin. So I'm just going to just see if I can bring you back.
Do you want me to turn on and off?
We can hear, okay? We just can't see it. So if I just reboot and then that. Don't swear.
I can't see any of you. It's just me on my own in the three.
So you need to start your cameras again.
Oh, there we go.
So we have lost them, haven't we?
Can you not see me?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Is that better? Can you see me at all?
Will, have you got his? Are you texting him?
Yeah.
Yeah. If he just follows the link again, it should bring him back to us. So I don't know why his camera feed went off. But is that your texting face?
That's my texting face. So I stick my tongue out to the side and I'm concentrating.
What do you do when you place an implant? What's your face then? Let's stop there. Let's stop there.
Have you got aircon in your practice?
Yes, this is another topic that I wanted to talk to Martin about, because I think he's got funky airflow things and all that sort of stuff. So
what, like that?
That's exactly that, high tech. So I think, aircon,
Yeah, it's probably not appropriate, but that just reminded me. Was it Ain't Half Hot Mom, where that guy used to pull the string and it used to waft over the. Oh, that's how old I am, Will. Oh, old enough to have.
That was more when I go to Greece in the 80s and stay in a hostel, and one of the big propeller fans would be lying above your head all night. Yeah. So where were we?
Martin, don't know what happened there.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Technical issue.
I was going to ask you, Martin, because again we've hit the other hot topic, which is your sort of fallow time, and also have you got any sort of mitigating toys or things in your surgery to mitigate that?
So I take it you've all been through the I'm going to buy 50 air purifiers and then not. I'm going to buy
$5
and then not. I'm going to do this and then not. And then what's incredible is when this started, the number of companies that suddenly know my email address. Immediately,
they'll find you.
I'm just like, how did you know I was looking at air purifiers? So that was the first thing that struck me. So in the end, we were. I think. We've got two practices. One we built quite recently, maybe 2 years ago. And when we built it, we put in this fresh air system at the time, because the guy said, look, while you're here, it's not going to be a huge amount more. Why don't you do it? And we said, okay, fine. They're putting pipes everywhere. And we had the pleasure when he came in, we said, look, we're about to buy all this stuff. I said, can you tell us about this system that we've had here? And he said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, if you go downstairs, there's a little button on the wall. If you flick it from this switch to that switch, what it does is basically clears the air out of your room, about 12, something like 12 times an hour if it's empty, or up to 20 times an hour if it's full. So we were very lucky that we spent money when we built the practice. So that meant that our fallow times in one practice is down to 10 to 15 minutes, with other mitigating factors. The other one is similar because we've got ventilation, so that the rooms don't have windows, but we've got these fans that suck everything out. It's a wall fan. They're quite powerful ones. There's a whole system that chucks it out the back of the building. So that's what we use in the other practice. So we've got 10, 15-minute fallow times because when we did the building, we put all this stuff in. We have bought a toy, though. If Will know me, you have to buy a good kit. You've got to have a good kit, don't you?
That's what I was fishing for.
You can't resist. But so what we've got is it's effectively it's called an extraoral suction. It's by AT. And that I think what the reason why we went for that is we thought, okay, short term, we might reach a point where the level goes up and we actually have people who are very nervous. And if you're very nervous, you can bring the big ET kind of thing that's going to remove all of the aerosol. And also for our hygienist, because we thought she's going to be in a room full of this stuff. And we figured out it's the equivalent, if you point it up, of having an air filtration system. And if you point it at the patient, you're kind of sucking everything out quickly. So we got one of those. We've got a fogger that we use, and the fogger we use probably sort of middle of the day, end of the day. But now that the alert level's gone down and everyone seems to be, and they can't fog Bournemouth Beach. So because they can't fog Bournemouth Beach, we're not going to fog our surgery either. So with that in mind, I think the fogging we're going to drop until the alert level goes up. But that's pretty much it. Lots of gowns, as you've all got, the reusable, washable ones. We've got ones that are like a shower curtain, which I feel, which were not pleasant today. And we've got other ones that are a bit more breathable. So all of that sort of stuff. Nothing other than that. I had to strongly resist the urge to buy an air purifier. I did want one, but the bank manager said no.
They've got one in one of the practices that I was in. They got air purifiers. So they got the big one in the surgery, and they got a little one in the waiting room, and it has got virus killer written across it, which is like, wow. Yeah, and a nice blue light to go with it. So I think what you've done is you've got all the toys, haven't you? That's fantastic. I like that. When you're fogging, you're using hypochlorous.
Yes, we are. So we're using the pre-mixed. We're using the pre-mixed. We not the tablet stuff, because that's toxic. So we're using the pre-mixed stuff. Pour it in, and when you first use the fogger, if you put your hand too close, you think that the fogger doesn't work. You think this is more like a wetter. You put your hand there and it just ends up dripping wet. But you realise you need to be a little bit of a distance in order for the mist to develop, and I have to say, it's reassuring. It feels nice to have done it. That the high contact areas, so reception, loos, are where we'll focus it on. We're unsure as to if it will affect the upholstery of the chair. And all the manufacturers said, "Oh, don't put that near our chair." So the rooms are a little, that we spray and wipe.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, but you've answered it.
Yeah.
Because I've heard one or two people saying they're wiping afterwards as well, just because they're a bit worried about the effect that it has, certainly on the stainless steel little bits they've got.
Yeah.
And are you doing sort of fallow period from handpieces or ultrasonics going down? Are you kind of like starting the clock and then ping and then change around and go? Yeah.
So and what we've done is we've got our dentists to, when they book an appointment, they have to book in their fallow time as well. This saves, because otherwise you end up with your diary and then a block for fallow time, then your diary, then a block for fallow time. And when the patient moves, if you don't move the fallow time block with the patient, you end up with a kind of strange thing. So that's how we've tried to get around that one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Another idea I can steal from you. It's the only reason we brought you along. Just like,
fair enough.
Let's nick some ideas from Martin.
We'll be writing this all down, Martin.
Yeah, I was curious because you mentioned that sometimes you said that it does, doesn't it? You're doing a procedure and it turns into an AGP, and then what do you do? Unless you've got the spare surgery, if you've got patients waiting and they're booked in, and you've got an hour, for some practices they're an hour. How do you manage that? You can't tell a patient they've got. You sit in your boiling hot car. You can't per hour, please. So I imagine that's going to be extremely difficult for some practices unless they get that sorted out in here first. So well done for that.
But I think the other thing that it's brought up, which is probably, I think this is why we had a week of like very, very light bookings, was just to sort out, when you're doing a procedure, you have to decide what you're doing before, you can't do it on the fly like you used to, saying, oh, no, it's not a filling, it's a crown, it's a this. It's now, this is what we're doing. Can we get all the stuff out? Can we sort out what we're doing beforehand? So that part has taken a little, we're looking at the diary, forward at the diary a lot more, and really, really checking appointments rather than, I think some people used to rock up to work and just say, okay, what's it today? It's hard to work in that environment.
Yeah. Are you phoning your patients up as well before, or having chats with them before they come in?
Not phoning. We use a little thing called Jot Form. So it's an online form, and basically send them a questionnaire. And so having a look at that, and then the ones that flag up any yeses, that's those people we're speaking to. And actually, I think just today, Nick sent me an email. We're going to add questions about people who are shielding. So I think we've got lots of questions, but we need some shielding ones on there.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's all going to be very sort of risk assessment heavy in terms of our paperwork, isn't it, moving forward? Staff and patients.
Yeah. I mean, the other little thing is also we use a note program called Kiroku, which auto writes your notes for you. And on there, the first bit is the FGDP triage. So it helps you kind of go through those bits at the beginning. But it all takes time. It all takes just time. I mean, it sounds like you've talked about it and been through this yourselves.
Yeah, I've looked at that. I've not used, it's the one Hannah Burrows is.
Yeah.
But I've not actually used it. It looked really good, and I must admit, a bit like your emails that you were getting for your air filtration. I had a few emails back, but with lockdown, I never really got the chance to investigate it. So do you like that? Is it a good?
I like that because what you realise is when you write notes, you write the same thing again and again and again and again. And the problem is you get caught out when you didn't write down the batch number or the this or grade the radiograph. So it just allows you to have all those things there and really quite quickly go through it. You have to work at it when you first get it and customize your own templates. And there's a bit where I learned during lockdown how to make my own templates. So that was quite good. So it just saves the last thing you need at the end of a day of kind of AGPs is to justify each one and have to write a new sentence for each one. So it's just a quick way of organizing in your head to get that done. So I find it quite useful.
That's probably really good. I mean, me and Will and Kate were talking about Wales last week. Not as a country, but just
sea mammals.
Yeah, and one of the things that they've mentioned is that you're not allowed to have the computer in the room. So they've advised that all the computers come out of the surgical room, which then, I imagine can be quite difficult. But if they had something like that, I would imagine that'd help quite a lot. I don't know how they're dealing with that. Because
how are you going to look at radiographs that happen to be digital? Your CT scan might be handy during. Yeah. I know the two of you obviously have these photographic memories, so you can look at the scan and remember it bit for bit. But for people like me, you'd like to look at the scan while you're working.
Yeah, I don't understand really how they can implement that and use that effectively. I may have misread it, but I'm certain that I read the word "no computers," in the room. So I will go back and double check, just in case anybody's listening.
Yeah, ours are covered in cling film. That's what we've done with them. So the keyboards in cling, probably similar to you guys.
Absolute sense. That's enough.
Yeah, it's just the usual sensible precautions you've got to take. But we sort of touched on sort of the Welsh system compared with the English system, didn't we? Last time, we probably went off on one a little bit. I mean, although I'm from Wales, I'm very grateful that I'm not practicing there at the moment because it just sounds.
Well, you wouldn't be.
Absolute nightmare.
No, you wouldn't be.
I wouldn't be allowed in, probably.
Yeah. You could have that holiday for a bit longer.
Oh. But
go on, Martin.
It just sounds like the Wales thing. I really, really. I mean, why is it when you go, 5 meters across the border or half an hour across the bridge, it really, you'd understand if you're an island, like in New Zealand, and the other island is a boat ride or a plane ride away. But it's
we worked it out last week. It's all to do with the nasty viruses in Wales compared to the soft wussy ones that are in England.
Okay, so is this? I think there's some rugby coming in here, isn't there? Yeah.
They're a bit tastier, see.
Yeah, but it's getting weaker though, isn't it? Because we can social distance now to a meter because obviously the virus, as you're breathing, it doesn't travel as far anymore. It only gets a meter, and then that's it.
But it just drops.
Yeah, it just drops straight down.
Well, I think in certain environments, dental practices, it's been to the gym. It's really on cue. Bars, pubs, beaches. It's really it's had a few to drink. It can't be bothered. It's feeling quite lethargic. It's lying in the sun. It thinks I can't go a meter. I can't.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Will, since opening, is it too soon to say if you changed any of your processes? We said the other week that, as we go forward, there are going to be some that people knock on the head, if you like. Is it too soon?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think these SOPs are all going to be living documents, aren't they? And sort of changing rapidly. And already everybody's got their own interpretation in terms of if I mitigate this factor, then I can lop 10 minutes off, my fallow period and all that sort of thing. I think you probably get a groundswell of movement within the profession. We've sort of touched before, or possibly even ranted about leadership or lack of it, and how the profession has mobilized quite nicely, I think, in terms of researching the science. I suspect as a profession, there'll be a groundswell of movement where people have researched it and will start, maybe adjusting things like fallow period, or when is an aerosol, or how much PPE, do we actually need? So at the moment, too early, really. We're we're just about getting used to, 1.0 before we sort of move on to the, 2, 3, 4, 5 upgrades and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. So as practice owners, I mean, Will and Martin, paperwork wise with all of this, how much of your time would you say spent on paperwork, as in an addition to what it was like prior to COVID?
I think it's been mainly getting the SOPs out and getting that bit done was just, because I think, people ask, how was lockdown? A lot of lockdown was spent preparing to come out of lockdown. And if at the end of it, someone had said, right, okay, really, it's the 23rd of March, you're going to go back on the 8th of June, you need some plastic aprons, you need some washable gowns, you need some hats, and you need some masks, and the rest of it will take care of itself. I would have had a really, really relaxing lockdown. So it's the preparation really that's happened before. So at the moment, not a huge amount. The furloughing, unfurloughing, refurloughing, it's required Nick and I probably talking, probably daily for. There's lots of little things that turn up that need constant dealing with because it's new and it's the first time. And what do we do with this? For instance, what do we do with a new patient where it's a non-essential treatment who really wants it? What do you do? So there's all of that stuff. It's a lot of the time has been spent. I mean, the analogy I use is we had this nice house built of Lego, and suddenly we were asked to disband it and throw all the pieces in different directions. We're now scrabbling around the floor of the kitchen, trying to find all the pieces and trying to build a completely new house. And you discover that someone's changed the shape that you're starting with and thrown away the instructions. So within all of this, that's essentially what we're trying to do. So it's been really good to have the team with us. They've been very helpful. The ones that have been back. A lot more, but not a huge amount more. I'd say probably maybe about an hour to an hour and a half per day of just other stuff needs to be dealt with on top of trying to fix teeth.
And sometimes it feels like you've stood on one of those Lego blocks without any shoes on, It's a killer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right. I think we spent an awful lot of time during lockdown probably looking at, I did what everybody else is doing. I'm a great believer in there's no such thing as an original idea. So I'm quite happy to, pilfer everybody else's stuff. And you could almost see certain, one corporate in particular brought out a very extensive SOP, didn't they? Which, I think formed the backbone of a lot of people's SOPs.
And the NHS guidance, probably.
Yeah. And then it was all kind of tinkered, and a few people did a nice summary, and I think sort of everyone sort of got those, tinkered a little bit, adjusted it to fit your own practice, and bring it in that way.
It's quite surprising, as you guys have just said, which I do know is common sense. During lockdown, at some point you knew you'd be reopening, so quite clearly you've used the time where you can to start the wheels in motion. It has shocked me, I must admit, and maybe yourselves, to hear some of the practices when they were told that we were going back suddenly go, oh, what have I got to do? When am I going to get my PPE? But I find that very difficult, and I mean, I do feel for their patients, I must say.
I think it depends on, different practices have potentially, I think one of the things is overheads. If you're a small private practice in a market town with no other practices, with less competition and a very, very loyal patient base, they're going to give you the time to come back. Whereas, if you're a busy London high street practice with, who's been paying your landlord rent all this time, you an extra week of preparation is more money in some ways. So I think for me personally, it was the realization that every week you're shut is a week that you're not paying off this debt that you're incurring. So that was probably the motivating factor for us as a business. Yeah. And then if you couple that on top of people, once it went on a certain amount of time, people in treatment, you're thinking, okay, is that provisional bridge going to break? Is that, how long is this stuff going to last?
Yeah. Perhaps some people are more motivated than others, maybe.
I think it's a lot of it as well was the people felt safe. A lot of people felt safe prior to lockdown that the systems that they had in place were universal precautions, were adequate. So I think that when the new sort of guidance came out, for not all of them, but for some people, I don't think they were then scrambling to kind of get that PPE in place, and it had all gone because other people had either brought it or donated it. So a lot of them were left kind of, right, okay. And the timing of it, I think that if they'd have been given a bit more notice rather than on a ticker tape on the BBC and told, this is where we're going to be heading. You've got a certain amount of time to start preparing. We think we're going to be doing this. That probably would have been really helpful for a lot of businesses. And also we've got the difference between the NHS and the private. So for those, I'm going to say poor people in the NHS, they can't change the prices for the patients, but they have to change the increase in the costs. In other words, they have to purchase that and take the extra time, but there's no more income coming into those practices. So they're in a rock and a hard place, I think.
Very difficult.
Me personally, I think for those guys.
I think the mixed practices probably have it hardest because I think if you're a mixed practice who has a good NHS contract that's enough to kind of keep everything ticking over, but you rely on your private income for your really big ticket items, I think that's the difficult place to be. If you're private completely, you can open again and you can work it out yourself. If you're completely NHS, then depending on your particular motivation, you might or might not want to come back. You might wait for a fit test till October, as I've heard one rumor of one particular guy who said, I'll wait for the fit test. I need a fit tester. So,
he's got a lot more Netflix to watch.
Yeah, he hasn't reached the end of Netflix. So I think the mixed practices in the middle have been, that's where it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, there was I'm not going to rant again, but the bit where they brought out the PPE that you could only buy if you're in NHS practice, which has now changed, I think. So there were three, weren't there? TRICARE, little plug for your TRICARE, and the other two. And, and you could buy it if you're NHS patients, but if you're a mixed practice, could you use it on your private patients? And I heard that discussion going on. I thought that was quite an interesting predicament, but I think they've changed that now and said, oh, sorry, we didn't mean that. You can all have it for all of your patients at an additional 30%. And that ended that conversation.
I know. It's the price of it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah, it's like I said with the masks. I was astounded. So from £25 up to 60, I think it had gone, which is a phenomenal hike. But
yeah,
people need them. People
need them. Very much so. Very much so. So any plans, different plans for the coming weeks, apart from the obvious, tackling it every day as you come? Any new, well, not new, but any more treatments booked in that you haven't done so far, guys?
I think we are probably by the end of next week be running pretty much all our services with slightly restricted hygiene. So I think probably just holding off on the ultrasonics for a little bit longer. But I think by and large, I think by the end of next week, I think we should be hopefully ticking all the boxes.
Oh, great. It's great to hear, Will.
I think with us, hygiene is similar to you, Will. Hygiene is probably the difficult part, and we've brought our hygienist back. She's just started today. She's at hand scaling only, and what is going to be difficult is those people who want that clean mouth feeling that comes from using the Profi and the ultrasonic and all. They're not going to be happy, and they're going to be like, I don't care, but I haven't got it, and I want you to use it on me. So that's a little battleground that we're focusing on next week.
Yeah,
I think the other thing is just to try and get because everything is still a little bit up in the air. We're still learning on the job. We're still figuring out what to do on a daily basis, and we're still having to listen and change and listen and change and listen and change. And I think for those people who are quite happy and comfortable in that sort of environment where they can really, really adapt quickly, it's been fine. But we have some people who are really, really fixed, and I think just trying to help those people along and understand their particular concerns and try to work with them and get them to understand that, you know, this only happens once every 100 years, so you're unlikely to face another one of these. But that doesn't help you today.
Good way of putting it, though.
It's true, though.
It is, certainly is. Well, guys, is there anything else that's burning that you'd like to
I've just got to get some branding in, because Martin, Carl always outbrands everybody.
I was looking at that and I was thinking, why didn't I have that at the beginning of lockdown? Yeah, that's it. All the webinars I would have done. I could have had a banner behind here.
I was going to say, if you've got any 10 Dental merch, now's your chance to get it up there.
I certainly don't. It's all online in an environmentally friendly way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's see what I can dig out next week, Carl. Let's give him a real Horton blast next week.
Well, there was a helpful bit of advice that came from HSE either yesterday or today, that